All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome,
Yeah,
welcome from the great before or youth seminar. I'm just chilling here, an unborn soul, fresh to the world. I have no idea what's happening in the world. Nobody tell me what's happening in the world. Yeah,
I
I'm just
just woke
gonna,
up. Who won the election?
yeah,
I
I
just I've
mean,
been asleep for what's going on?
You've been in a
Who
coma.
won?
yeah,
Yeah,
you
I just
know.
it's like when you take a snap in the middle of the day and just wake up. You don't know what time it is. I did that on November 3rd. What happened?
So yeah, I'm glad that we could all make it here to our respective areas beyond life and before life, in our warm and safe bubble that is far, far away from any sort of, I don't know. Let's just throw the word, I don't know, random word, insurrection out there. I don't know, just
Insurrection,
coup. I don't know,
coup,
Ooh,
acts of
who's a good
terrorism,
yeah,
one?
just
all these.
yeah, just thinking of words off the top of my head. I don't know. Those seem like maybe concepts that I would have no idea what those mean. And
Well, because you're a
so
brand new soul, so
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. 22 was right, at least in that sense.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, the rest of this
I hope you
movie.
keep. I'm gonna bring that back. I just want you to know that 22 is right. You can bring that back.
No, that one thing, that one.
I'm gonna remind you. Like you said that. All right. Just
Oh
remind
god.
you.
Yeah, so today we are talking about Soul. This one is it's complicated, but we're gonna get into it. Thank you, Lance, for bringing this one to us. You may
Welcome
know
back.
Lance from being with
Yes,
us
ma'am.
for let's see, Scott Pilgrim versus the World,
High
uh,
noon. High noon.
High Noon, yes,
Mm-hmm.
Celeste and Jesse Forever. Is there any more, Lance?
Hustlers.
Hustlers. Oh,
Hustlers.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
Hustlers, of course.
Of
Just,
course.
yeah, I want to wrap you up in my fur coat that we have now
Yes.
decided was
The
made
dream.
from Rum Tum
It,
Tugger's
it,
skin.
it is
Oh
it
It's,
no!
is
it's
What do
Rum
you mean
Tum
by
Tugger's
we?
fur.
When you said we, I don't know who you mean by we.
Oh well, I
I'm
mean,
like,
like the people that of us that had to suffer through cats, we've decided that the fur coat that J Lo was wearing in Hustlers was made from Run Tum Tugger's hide. So
well.
that's
you know what? I'm okay
Does
with that because I know she did it herself. She took that heel. She took one of her heels and just,
Just
I
skinned.
yeah, was like,
I think you have to be good with that because it makes Hustlers even better to know that Rum Tum
that's
Tugger is
true.
dead.
By like J Lo was like, I'm gonna scam these men and these cats. Like,
but
yeah.
yeah, Soul. So this movie was released. Was it at the end of 2020 or at the beginning of 2021? I don't know what time is
I
anymore.
think
It
I think
says 2020.
Christmas.
Oh,
I think it
right,
was
right.
Christmas 2020. Yeah,
And
Christmas present
yeah,
to
this is
us.
released on Disney Plus. It's a movie about a man who like kind of dies, I suppose, and then his journey back to life in a series, and that's translated and pontificated in a number of ways of what the meaning of life is throughout this movie. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like with that, like going point to point, that's really the movie. So, yeah, we start with Joe Gardner, who has just been, he starts out where he's teaching in class. He honestly doesn't really seem like a good teacher throughout this movie, even
Like
in real life.
there's only one
Sorry.
Like
only one student who's like student's like ashamed of it too. It's like, oh.
well, it's not even like the fact that like the students are like not great musicians or whatever. Like he just genuinely doesn't seem to care about his job or these students, like outside of the one who like, oh, like, well, I see that you have this like talent, and then later in the movie he's kind of like wishy washy in terms of actually nurturing that. So
Yeah.
I think that there's some interesting things about the characterization of Joe, but Yeah,
Yeah,
one
and
thing.
I think that was my favorite part of the movie, honestly, was the beginning of listening, as the credit sequence is happening, or logos are coming on, is hearing all of that terrible middle school band music
Right.
being played. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is setting us in a world, and I like this world so far. That's probably my favorite moment of the movie.
Yeah, I really did like, yeah, the opening of it, and kind of knowing what I had already heard about the movie. Even still, I was like kind of surprised when the whole thing, like, he dies in, like, well, dies, quote unquote, in what is the cold open of the movie. Like, before the opening like
Yeah,
credits roll,
before the
like,
title comes up. Yeah.
he is like
Mhm.
a blue blob. Like,
Disney just often,
yeah.
they sent
Yep.
the killers. They
And yeah, there's been a lot of talk about, because it's a recurring theme in animated, movies, particularly, like, if they're big budget, if they're like mainstream animated movies, and there's a black main character, then a lot of times that character is not a black person throughout most of the movie.
Is
Like,
sidelined in some
call
way.
that
no,
Yes.
it's
mashup.
like, like in The
Call
Princess and
that
the Frog.
mashup. It's a Disney thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Call
I was
that
just thinking, like, oh yeah, I was
mouse
like,
up.
because yeah, Tiana is like the same way in The Princess and the Frog,
Yep.
where she's a frog for most of the movie. Joe is a blue blob or a cat for most of this movie, with a white woman driving his body,
Oof.
which.
He doesn't want to give it back.
Well, like
Oh.
she is a white woman and she's not, because she's like a soul who has not gone to Earth yet, so like
Right.
hasn't inhabited a body. But there is a line where he says, like, "Why do you sound like a middle-aged white lady?"
Yeah.
And like there's this like kind of half-assed explanation of it, like, "Oh, I can sound like anything, but I do this because it annoys people."
Yeah, that was interesting, and that's the other thing of, like, yeah, sure, if this character is not a white woman, because they're like this disembodied soul, so that in my mind just means that, like, yeah, then that means anyone could have voiced this
Anyone could have voiced
character.
Anyone, yeah.
it.
Anyone that's not Tina
Anyone.
Fey could have voiced
I
this
was
character.
I was watching and I was like, oh, Issa Rae would have been perfect for this. Why does anyone ask her? Did anyone ask Issa Rae if she was free?
Oh my god, Issa Rae would have
That
been
would have been
amazing. Yeah,
amazing.
that honestly would
Oh.
have alleviated, like, a good, like, 60% of the issues that I have with this
The
movie.
major problems in this movie.
The
Lance,
things that are most problematic about it.
Yeah.
Lance, you brought us this movie, right? Had you seen it before?
I did.
Did you?
Oh,
Had you
yeah.
seen it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right.
I have, so I like, and I'll ask you guys if you did. I like this movie. I liked this movie. Didn't want to, but I did. And then, but like, I also was very angered by this movie. Like,
Exactly.
deeply, deeply angered by this movie. Because one, I was like, oh, so you can make a good movie with the main like it just, I was like, I liked a lot of the story stuff. I love the visuals. I thought they did visually a beautiful job with it. And like I kind of got the experimental parts of it too. I really liked. And I was like, wow, Pixar kind of, it felt like Pixar was moving to the future with a lot of it. But
Yeah, no, I get that, and I feel that, um, in a way, the movie, like, that's a part of, like, the moral of the movie itself, is like,
mm-hmm.
You don't always get everything that you want, and when you do get it, then it's not what you're expecting it to be. And I think that I found it kind of interesting that they would choose this story centered around, like, this black musician, to be where the moral of the story kind of is. Um, it kind of feels like, oh, you should just be grateful to be alive. Like, it feels like that's, and it's like, yes, 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 that's true. Yes, like life is a wonderful and complicated, gift, and I feel like there's a little bit of, like, toxic positivity in, like, the way that it ends, where it's like, yeah, just be happy
Yeah.
with being alive, and it's like, no, they're like life is the good and the bad, and I don't feel like this movie really, like like by the end of this movie, I feel like it's you're supposed to be like, well, it's fine because at least I'm alive.
Well,
And
that was
go,
sorry,
Colin,
sorry, go.
go. No, just
Well,
go.
that was annoying too because the happy ending was so just tacked on. It was such an afterthought of a happy ending for this Pixar movie that like it starts out like making an actual statement and then they kind of shift and give it this weird little like real half-ass happy ending that I found to be annoying. I also enjoyed the movie, but I was like going back and forth between liking this movie and being like really annoyed by this movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
No, same.
And I think that they, well, and it also because they do go back and forth on those things of, the movie starts where like as far as we know, like when he falls down that manhole, he dies. Like we later find out in the movie that he's just kind of like in a
He's
comatose
in a
state,
coma.
and his
Yeah.
soul's been like separated from his body, and that just opens up all these other questions in terms of like, well, what is this movie saying about you know being like in a coma versus actually being dead? Like if he'd actually like also like him like being able to resist the pull of the great beyond is this like is a weird thing, and it's like kind of sets these rules. The cat, like somehow the cat has a soul, and then
Okay,
when
that is
when
my
he
only
embodies
other.
the body, when his soul inhabits the body of the cat, we see the cat going into the great beyond. But then when he leaves the body, the cat is like back to normal. So did the cat not actually move into the great beyond? Also, were all of the little animal souls in the U seminar? Like all of these weird questions that like it like busts wide open, but then like never goes into any like meaningful answers for. And I think it
Right. Can
because
I jump in here? Because you
yes,
just hit
yes,
on
please.
my other favorite moment of this movie. Because I watched it last night and was angry, and so I forced myself to rewatch it today to see if I was still so angry, and I was. That Mr. Mittens going into the great beyond is my favorite moment. Right, it's where the cat is just like, right. So I looked up. I was like, how did they resolve this? What like does the cat? Why does the cat come back? They had to kind of like extra textually outside the film explain it, which the director was like, yeah, we wanted to have a sequence in it, but it didn't quite fit, and we thought it would be like a bummer after credits thing. So the cat has 9 lives. So it's back on one of its new nine lives.
Sure.
Man.
I guess. All right. Oh,
But there's
Let it
wow.
go
also the
out.
fact that you can enter the ethereal plane by like being an artist who's like really in the zone, and somehow like when you're in that space, you enter the ethereal plane somehow. And Graham Norton is able to travel back and forth between the ethereal plane and Earth like willy nilly somehow. Like, what are the rules for that character? Like, how is he able to like communicate with people or like understand when he's on Earth what's been happening on the ethereal plane? Like, there are so many
Well,
questions.
doesn't he get back to the ethereal plane doing that? Like he gets
Yeah,
back,
but
he's like playing the piano, and then he's there, and then I
Yeah,
was like, so is he still just playing the piano? Is he unconscious? Did he pass
yeah, did
out?
he die
Is he
while he was at the
dead?
piano?
Did
Because
he
not only does he
stroke
go
from
to
the
the
piano?
ethereal
Yeah.
plane, not only does he go to the ethereal plane, he goes like back into
Oh
22's
yeah.
little box and then is like in the youth seminar area too. So it's like it's all of these like questions that yeah don't really
It's
get answered. And I think that it's kind of like because this movie does toe this interesting line, which again I enjoyed this part. At least I enjoyed that it's at the very least a movie that actually honestly seems like it's more for adults than it is for children. Like it's an animated movie that feels like it's more for adults.
It's.
Like
I think it actually should have been. If this should have been an adult
well,
movie.
I feel like if they
Like this
yeah if
should
they
have
would have
it
been.
would
actually
have been
fully gone
better.
with that, then they could have
Yeah.
again been more like they could have gone deeper into those questions as opposed to having like to break it up with like these like really kind of kidsy moments, which I think that some of them like worked pretty well, but they just felt like they were a little out of place. Like when they first are in the hospital, like and 22 is in Joe's body and Joe is in the cat, and then they're like trying to like talk their way
Whew.
through this whole thing, and then like the
Love it.
doctors and the nurses come in, and like I was like cracking up, I laughed. That part actually had me like really laughing hard because it was just like such a well done thing, and it's like that's the thing about like Pixar is, you know, they're very intentional and they are very like adept at manipulating like emotions through their movies. Like they're really good at that.
Yeah,
That's something you can't deny about any Pixar movie is that like it will pull on those strings like really well.
I did cry watching this, and I did say out loud, "Fuck you, movie," for making me cry because it was so like blatantly manipulative when it was doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a tearjerker, right? They're called tearjerkers for a reason. They like actively, aggressively jerk the tears out of you, right?
I felt like they didn't. I feel like they didn't give me enough though to really like. I feel like there's in each Pixar movie I usually see there's a point where like I realize that I've been tricked into thinking something else. And like for this movie, the trick was that like, oh, jazz wasn't the like thing that he should be like passionate about as much. I'm just like, cool. I don't care.
I don't
never really
care.
cared. I never really cared about his jazz. Not gonna lie, never really cared about it. Like it reminded me of like Coco. Like when you're watching Coco, the whole time you're like, oh, I really care about this kid getting to play the guitar. But then you realize the whole thing is about him. What he really needs is his family.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, super emotional. This I was like,
well, and I think a part of what that is like the movie doesn't really give us like how like culturally important like jazz is like within like as this like black musician like we get these like moments where he says it like where he says like you know oh this is like so great when my dad took me and you know I saw all the I heard started hearing the fourths and the you know like the in betweens and all of these different moments within like within jazz within like the instrumentation of the show that he was at and we don't really get like how like culturally important like jazz is to like American music, like to like black history. And it becomes this thing where like because like you're saying, Coco really like is about like the culture and the story and the
Yes.
like the individual story and the characterization are paired so well with the actual culture of the story that it like you get all of these moments and you actually get that connection. This movie just like really felt like a really broad sense of like oh yeah like life is what you're like life is what you're doing when you're living it, you know, like some weird like live laugh love type of thing that like has like a black face, not black face but like a black face
But
on
yeah,
it
but it's
like
presented that way.
and
Yeah.
so it's like
Isn't
yeah
it
this
kind of?
really
Isn't there kind
broad
of
sort of
like
thing that never really digs into like like this particular character's like connection to blackness or like black music or any of that other than these
anything
passing
about the
moments.
history of jazz or the
Yeah.
history of animation and jazz or the history of improvisation and animation and jazz. I mean, I have lots of notes on this.
I had this thought today that like I wonder if the writer of this movie saw La La Land and just got so annoyed with Ryan Gosling's character that they were just like, I want to like make a movie that's like anti that, like stop, like never play that piano again, never touch that keyboard again. And I was just like, because I was like, yeah, that would if I knew that was for fact why they did it, I would like this movie more. I'd be like, okay, I'm on board.
Right.
Yeah. No, I want Ryan Gosling off that piano. Let's go.
Just get him away. Go away.
Right.
Get away. Just go away. He's the only person you need to see this movie. Really, that character, the only person.
I kind of want to jump back to him not being a very good teacher real quick because I thought that's where it was going to go. When we discovered that like jazz wasn't his like meaning for living, that like it's supposed to be about life and living life, and I thought that was going to be the impetus, like, oh well, now he's going to double down, he's actually going to become a really good teacher and he's going to make his purpose like passing on that love of jazz to all these kids. but it's not. Like he doesn't. It
Nope.
doesn't seem like he's even going to be a teacher at all anymore. He's just going to continue gigging with the lady who he like got into the quartet with.
Yeah.
He was like, he said, "Fuck these kids." He was like, "I don't want to do this. Like, I don't care about
Yeah, no, he
stuff."
literally says forget class. Like when he's like on the phone, like right after like gets the news that he gets the gig, he's like on the phone with someone, and you can tell they're like, oh, like, but what about your students? And he's like, well, forget class. I'm in like Dorothea Williams class. Like, and it's like, wow, like he really just said like fuck those kids. Like I'm going to like do this, and I'm like, yeah, again, like you're saying, Colin, this could have taken something and been like, oh yeah, like his love for jazz is something that like now he can actually like. But they could have like gone away where they said, okay, well, instead of him like playing like playing for himself or like his own personal desire to like play jazz, he can like now instill that love of jazz like by becoming a great teacher, by like who was it, Curly, like his student, where like there are all these little moments where they kind of hint at like that's where this movie could go, because Curly's like, I would have not even stayed in school at all had you not been my teacher. Like,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing with Connie. Like, it's like she's like doesn't care about like really anything else. She's about to give up until 22, as Joe like just kind of like is there to like be there for her moment, and we don't really get that going anywhere.
Like it's 2 minutes after the movie ended, I was like, oh, is he gonna go to Connie and be like, quit, never touch that instrument again, because there's more to life? Because I was like, is that what he's getting? Yeah, because the teaching thing seemed like a throwaway throughout the like. It felt like after that Connie scene, we didn't need like there was no point in him being a teacher anymore, and
there wasn't a point of him being a teacher to begin with, right?
I mean, to begin with, yeah.
Right.
Other than it gives like Felicia Rashad like something to be like proud of him for, or like it gives like a sticking point between him and Felicia Rashad, so that he can go to his mom and be like, yeah, well, I got like a stable job. I'm a teacher now.
Right. And oh my god, that was one of the moments that I really did enjoy too. Was like, and why I felt like it was again such a loss to not have this character's voice be his own through so much of this movie, because one of the most like evocative scenes is when we actually get him like when it's the cat talking to 22 in his body, but like the way that the movie does, it transitions to where it's just him talking, it comes out of his own mouth when he's talking with his mom, and we get this moment where there's this breakthrough between them in their relationship, and he finally gets to like this core root of like his mother's spears about like him. It's where it's like more, it's not that she doesn't want him to like be successful, is that she's afraid that he won't be successful because while his father was like devoted to like the craft, he also was just not as successful. He was only able to do what he did and live his passion because, his mother was running the shop and was able to support financially while his father pursued his dream. And he does, and she's just worried that like if I'm gone and like you don't have that you're not going to be able to like be able to support yourself like on just this thing. Like she asked like like, well, what about like pension, what about health care, like what about all of these things that are like basic needs that you know that are just necessities. And he's like, well, music is like what I live and breathe. And so they really come to this understanding, and that moment was so powerful because we just got to see him saying it in his voice.
His voice.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm just like so sad that we didn't get that throughout the whole movie.
I know, and that the idea that that Tina Fey's character, I don't even remember the name, 22, you just 22. Said it, there we go. Sorry. That 22 like is walks a mile in Joe's shoes in New York City, and what they learned after walking a mile in a black man in New York's shoes is that lollipops are good. Like what? Right?
Or that we like pizza is what like.
Yeah.
Like what? And that like I can't, because again I kind of half watched it the second time because I was still irritated, but this idea that like it's this black man helping a white lady find herself, right? There's that real thrust of that narrative going on.
It's literally driving Miss Daisy in the car is his body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the next level of driving Miss Daisy,
It
because
is.
like at this point
Oh
she's
my god, like
the
'cause
body.
it's literally
The
oh
next
god,
level.
no.
They said how can we do this in 2020?
Ethereal driving Miss Daisy.
Ethereal driving Miss Daisy, yeah.
Oh no.
Lance, yes, that is why I dislike this movie. Thank
That's
you.
why they tricked us. They were like, we want these people to watch driving. How do we get new people to watch?
How do we get new
Driving Miss
people?
Daisy?
We're gonna wrap it up in
like,
jazz
wrap it
and
up in
about
jazz.
culture. Yeah.
No, but also with what you just said, Craig. Sorry, I'm just trying to organize my thought here from that. The whole that scene where he's talking to his mother and he's finally saying what he wants. Did you feel that the ending underscored all of that? Because like then he's like, I eat and breathe jazz. This is what he like makes a statement that you're just like, okay, I see why he like doesn't want to take this teaching job. I can understand. 2 minutes later, he's like, oh man, maybe jazz isn't everything. Maybe I don't eat and breathe. Like I'm not having fun with this the way I thought I would, or something like that. I'm like, so you were wrong the entire time? Then what was the point of me watching this?
Well,
time to see you understand that like the thing that you thought you need to do, you didn't want to do. Cool. So what? So what now? Like,
and it's so many of the stakes of the whole second act is just like him getting to that gig, like just him getting to perform with like this woman, and then so all of that gets undercut by the end also, where it's just like, oh well, maybe jazz isn't everything, and like the whole movie has been about him becoming a successful jazz musician.
Exactly. And I get like because we get that moment with Dorothea Williams where she tells like the fish story where it's like a young fish goes up to an old fish and says that they're looking for the ocean, and then the old fish turns around and says, oh, this is the ocean, and then the young fish says, no, this is water, I want the ocean. And it's like, okay, yes, there's this thing of like getting what you want and it not being what you expected, or that whole kind of like you had it in you all along, or like it was like it was there all along. And again, this is why I feel like the ending just doesn't really land, because music is still like what he loves to do, and for the movie to kind of be like, well, you don't need music, like it was just so weird to me. It didn't make sense to me. I wanted it to, like, I really wanted to love this movie out and out, and I couldn't find myself doing it.
Yeah, I wanted to love it. If I look at the cast, right, because I had no idea who was in it going in, but I would like listen. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Graham Norton. I was talking about Graham Norton last episode, right? Little Shop of Horrors, or Richard Ayoade. Like, I love all these people. These are amazing people. And why is this movie so flat? And I think part of it is the end. I think you're all right on that. But I think the body swap comedy, right, just really undermines what this could have been very powerful, right? And yet again is it's kind of proclaiming that it's about something, and then it is totally not about that thing.
Right. Well,
I did enjoy. Here's something nice I can say about the movie. So, John Baptiste did the music. I don't know if you can see my Christmas album of his that I got this year.
Blurring out like crazy.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that the animators modeled his hands for the piano playing, and it's just so lovely because I love watching him play anyway. To be able to see an animated version of it, that was really kind of like nerdy and delightful.
Yeah, I think that like these moments where he is like playing were again like beautiful. They're just like the music in this movie is like 100% like undeniably just like phenomenal.
Mhm.
And I want more of that music, want more of it to be about the music.
Yes.
And yeah, the whole thing of like uh this not white woman like hijacking his body because like she wants to like figure out what her purpose in life is. Like that was just like, oh, that was a weird, like really kind of get out ish type moment of like
Yeah, I
This is
was
the
like,
sequel to Get Out.
yeah.
I at that point I
It's
was
like
like,
get inside out. Like
That's it.
oh no, that was good. But put that. You should
That
put that
was
on
good.
merch. You should sell merch that says that. Oh my
It'd just be
god.
a picture of like the poster of this movie and just said "Get
Get
Inside
inside.
Out."
Oh god. You have to put like no, like I would actually put the characters in the Get Out poster. Like put them through the I think it would fit. No, this movie I thought like except for like the Tina Fey of it all. I think the movie was the voice acting was really good.
Yeah.
And like if anything I'll give the movie is that it does show how far Pixar has come from like Toy Story 1 to like the capabilities of what they are able to do, which also like it's crazy that you when you think about the fact that like is this the first Pixar movie with like a black lead? Not Disney movie, Disney just Pixar Disney movie where I'm just like interesting.
Yeah.
I
Because
think it is. I can't think of.
yeah.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even a black lead for like voice casting wise, if you take out even like a black like character lead, just a black voice lead, I
Like
think this
talking
is
animals.
talking
that have,
animals.
right?
Yeah, I think this is the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is let's just
Yeah.
it's that stuck out to me too, where I was like, this shouldn't in 2021, let's say, because it's like the end of 2020. Like that's when you're doing this Pixar.
Yeah, and I mean,
Interesting.
it's
Yeah.
still like, and the whole thing was like, it was still really giving me like magical Negro vibes.
Yes.
Like I
Very
was getting
much.
so much of that from this movie. Like this is like, this reminds me of like of how I felt like about um like Lovecraft Country too. Like I just I just like
You're
I love
bringing.
like I
Oh
really love
no.
like I want us to have like, great black media. And I love that this movie is not just like solely centered on like black trauma, but like the ways that it like just kind of like glosses over like blackness. It just felt so
It's
uh
paper thin.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
paper
yeah.
thin.
It felt
Yeah.
thin. It felt like whitewashed in a lot of ways. It just felt like so like disappointing.
Inconsistent. It was
I
I
wanted it
feel
to
like
be better.
it was inconsistent. It was what's not weak, but lazy. It felt lazy.
Lazy
That-
is a very good description.
That is the
Like,
word I
Yeah.
used all last night watching it. I was like,
Mhm.
this is such lazy storytelling. This is
It's lazy.
lazy. It's lazy cultural appropriation because they don't do anything with it, right? Like
They don't.
They
It's
don't.
it's a bunch of people who are like, oh, people are gonna see black people. They're gonna see jazz, and they're gonna buy a ticket to go see this movie. I mean, when they thought
Or
it
a
was
Disney
being
Plus
in theaters.
or
subscription,
they'll
you
just
know.
watch it on Disney Plus.
I was
I think that's how
I was
all of us
thinking-
watched it.
No, I was thinking like 2019. What they were thinking, they were like, oh yeah, people are gonna buy tickets. They're gonna be lining up. The theaters are gonna be packed. And if anything, like if there's anything good coming from like, because 2 movies came out that day. 2 movies came out.
What was the other one?
Oh, I'll give you a hint. Not the Wakanda Forever. What's
No,
her
it's
name?
Wonder Woman
Yeah.
84 came out the
Oh,
same day.
84.
Oh
That's
boy.
stinker. Yeah.
Two
That
movies came out that day.
as long as we're talking about movies that
Um,
were disappointing.
Yeah,
Wonder
right.
Woman 84.
Yeah, this definitely wasn't
yeah.
anywhere near that level.
No, God,
Like,
no.
Of train wreck.
yeah.
They would have Tina Fey would have had to say the N word for me to be like, okay, it's close. I'm like,
Oh my god.
no, but yeah, two movies came out that day, and like if you think about it, those are supposed to be like the big blockbuster hits, probably. Wonder Woman's probably going to come out. Well, Soul was going to come out earlier too, right? Soul was like I think a summer release
I don't remember
originally.
at all. Like,
I think originally it
I
was.
don't know, but I did look. It did come out on Christmas Day.
Yeah,
yeah,
it did come out on Christmas Day. But I think like when you think about they thought they were like this was supposed to be they were probably thinking that if we have black people and we have jazz, we get a black audience for it, and well they have Felicia like casting wise too, Jamie Foxx, Felicia Rashad, like those are two like huge names in black culture. Like they're gonna get a lot of people from that, and like is it a coincidence they got Jamie Foxx, who was like one of his biggest roles is playing Ray Charles?
Yes.
right.
I'm just like, it's they did that instead of doing the research.
Yeah.
They like were doing
Yeah.
those
It's
things.
so
Well,
lazy.
and that's the thing too is like
Yeah.
I feel like because looking at the credits, I didn't like I saw. I mean, first of all, like the guy, the main director guy, I forget his first name, but like his last name is like Doctor. He's like
Yeah, Pete
a
Doctor.
Pixar like staple. Like everyone there is like just like Pixar, like in the Pixar company, like almost all of them are white except for like, they have like the co-director. Um, Let me see. I need to find this because
Co-director is Kemp Powers.
thank you, thank you.
And
And
he's the guy that wrote the play One Night in Miami that Regina King directed the film adaptation for that's coming out next week. So
oh,
like
okay.
So we should have watched that.
so yeah, no, I mean I watched it. It's a great movie. Should have watched it. It's a fantastic movie, which is me plugging a better movie.
But yeah, like and that's like the thing of like you were saying, like they're like have all of these like front facing like black people in terms of like the images on the screen, the voices in the cast, but like behind the camera, like once again, or I guess the animation rig, whatever. But once again, it's like we see that like it's a lot of white people who are still like writing the stories for like these like black actors and that comes through that still comes through regardless of like how many black people are like actually like on screen and like we see this like so many times and you would think that there would be like some lessons learned at this point, but
well, you
here we
remember
are
the
again.
Coco of it all, right? The whole Coco Day of the Dead fiasco with Disney Pixar.
Yeah,
Where do you guys know about it?
No.
didn't they try to like copyright or like
They try
trademark
to
like
they
Dia
try
de
to
los Muertos?
copyright Day of the Dios de los Muertos, and like people were like, "Excuse me," like
Right.
they're like, "This is
like this thing
excuse
that's been a
me."
part of our culture for centuries.
Yeah.
It just like, and I think they got sued by I forgot who sued them, but they got sued and they had to like basically rewrite the entire film, the concept from like just basic story concept to like what it became, and they had to hire a bunch of people to help like in the cultural department, and apparently it was supposed to start a huge cultural like a cultural change at Pixar to start having more awareness in the films. But after watching this, I was like, like, where's that department now? Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
I just
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't really have any other notes like on this movie. Like I really wanted
you guys want to
um
hear
to
a
feel
fun
better about it.
conspiracy? You guys want to hear a fun conspiracy theory I have? about this movie that I just thought of because why not? Why I need something to like escape the horrors of every day.
Sure.
So this movie, and I've talked about it on this podcast before, I think has to do something with the whole conspiracy that Walt Disney is still alive, and
Oh my god.
he's
Oh my
he's sending
god.
us
He's
signs
a
in this
brain in a
movie.
jar somewhere.
I just want to
He's
put out
sending
a
us
disclaimer
signs that
here. The thoughts and opinions of Lance Morgan do not reflect upon. I want you to watch
I'm
this as a
just
podcast
I'm just saying.
overall. So
I'm
yeah, I
just
just want to
saying.
put that
You can,
disclaimer out there.
there's no way to disprove me. I'm just saying that. There's no way I'm disproven on this podcast. There's no way that I can be disproven. No, I mean, I just think that there are signs.
Oh my
that Walt
god.
Oh my
Disney
gosh.
still
Girl.
here. Listen, it's been a tough quarantine.
Well, yeah. Does anyone else have any other notes about the movie?
I have two quick things. One was that this was a weird, dumbass joke that they put in, but like a cameo by Pizza Rat. So
Oh
like
yeah.
when the cat is dragging the piece of pizza, like there's a rat which is dragging a piece of pizza the other way, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. They're doing Pizza Rat. But I wanted to talk about how he dies and a quick note on manhole safety because I'm somebody who actually does open manholes all the time as a part of my job.
That's what he said.
Somebody better have gotten fired because you don't ever leave an open manhole unattended. Like somebody has to be up top watching that thing. Either somebody is going to fall in it or die, or like a car is going to come by and like wreck their entire front end by driving into an open manhole. You don't ever leave an open manhole without somebody watching it. That's
Well, yeah, that whole
basic
scene
ass
was
shit.
ridiculous. Like him like walking under the bricks and they just like fell, and then there's like a bunch of like banana peels that had like fallen over, and somehow it wasn't like whole bananas. It was like the peels were just everywhere in front of like the bodega, and then there was like, oh yeah, just a bunch of nails over the sidewalk right next to all the banana peels, and so it was just like Final Destination. Like it was just like
was I
someone was
supposed to
out
be
to get
like?
Joe.
Was I supposed to be like, that's hilarious that he's dead? Like,
I
ha, 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 ha.
That's how I felt about
That man died.
the other
So-
scene too with like after the barbershop, the I forget the guy's name, but he's like the one who was like, talking all the shit. And then we're supposed to like dislike him. And then he like goes through and Terry, the like the authority figure, the counter guy, the counter spirit thing is drops him into like the nether space or whatever, like completely like traumatizing him. Like, and I was just like, am I supposed to be laughing at
Is
this?
this
Like
supposed to be
I just
funny?
like I know we're like apparently we're supposed to like dislike this guy, but like not only did he just like get like like called out on like like yes he was like talking smack or whatever, but then like he like has this like whole like little existential crisis, and then after that like he is like pulled into like ostensibly like the underworld, like where his soul is removed from his body by this like negligent again, like not a British person per se, but like someone voiced by a British person. And just like, am I supposed to think this is funny? Because that just seems like really, really terrifying and traumatic.
Traumatizing. Yeah. Right.
I feel like
Well, go.
they remembered at the. Oh, sorry.
No. Go. I was going to take us back.
I was just gonna say, I felt like at that point they were like forgetting it was a kids movie, and they're like, okay, how do we stupid it up for the how do we just make it cheap laughs, like get some cheap laughs for these children?
And then, like, if you think about the history of animation, like that zany wackiness, like Tex Avery did that so well. They're like stealing from the wrong people. You know what I mean? So for those of you who can see, when you were talking about falling in the manhole, so this is a film entitled The Hole, which is by my animation mentors. It won an Oscar by John and Faith Hubley. It stars Dizzy Gillespie, and he completely improvised. Why can't I say this word?
Improvised.
There we go. Thank you. I'm like trying to conjugate it wrong. He is entirely improvised between himself and George Matthews. It's a fantastic, phenomenal. It just got released on Criterion a few months ago, so I would highly recommend this film. Continuing the jazz and animation theme that this movie steals from left and right, is also from the Hubleys, another film called The Hat, which also stars Dizzy Gillespie. It's a really great film. How about Tender Game, which is where the Hubleys invited Ella Fitzgerald into their animation studios, and she recorded a unique version of her classic song Tenderly for their animated film. How about the whole series they did with Benny Carter, a long ongoing collaboration between animators and jazz musicians, right? So when I'm watching this movie, it was infuriating to see how like so much of the kind of design aesthetics that are coming from the Hubley movies. Sorry, I'm doing a quick little slideshow here in my background, right? Like the color choice, like all of it, right? And
right.
that this comes from a style of animation that the Hubleys created.
Oh yeah,
and,
like totally.
right?
Oh wow.
Right? Like look at this,
So it's
right?
totally like look like the like the arbiters and like the
yes,
the counters.
100%.
It is like what piece by piece. This is from Harlem Wednesday, which is another film of theirs that I highly recommend, which is really fantastic. Here's Faith's work here, the little blobby dudes, they're in a different color, right?
Someone's that movie. Ooh, this is a Vanilla Ice situation.
Yes, it is. This is The Hat. This is Dizzy Gillespie here on the left and Dudley Moore on the right. This is from Tender Game. This is from the Ella Fitzgerald one, right? So I'm watching this and I'm like infuriated because it's lazy storytelling, it's lazy design. It's like I saw, will they have like a mood board for a movie? It's like I've seen every single movie on there, and in fact, they were my animation mentors. And to add to the dimension here, when John and Faith started their own first independent animation studio, Hubley Studio, in the country, Walt was really pissed because John was really active in the Disney strike, the strike against Disney in '41. So Uncle Walt fingered John and Faith as communists, and they had to appear before HUAC, the House on Un-American Activities Committee. In fact, when Faith passed away, when she died, I was packing up her studio, like physically packing it up, and found the telegram that was that they had to come before HUAC because they had been labeled as communists. So the idea that they've taken the history of really thoughtful, amazing, Oscar-winning history of jazz and animation and shat all over it by Disney, it just makes me I have feelings about it.
I just want to say, I think this goes with my theory that he's still alive.
That he's still alive. It's the revenge. It's his revenge.
I repeat, the opinions of Lance Morgan do not reflect upon the podcast called I Want You to Watch This. Thank you.
But there are theories that are happening. Conspiracies.
Yes. But it's also that if this movie is about the love of jazz, which we've talked about, is not about the love of jazz, they could have done better on that. If it's about the love of kind of playing with others and kind of getting in that mode and that zone and kind of improvisation, again, all of the dialogue for these films was improvised, right? That they did it with their children. That's actually where John Lasseter got the idea for the little kid in Monsters, Inc. That is based from he admits it. He said to Faith, like, I was on the phone, right? We have this new character inspired by Windy Day and Moonbird, which Moonbird won an Oscar. I can't remember if Windy Day was up for an Oscar, but it's their children kind of playing in the studio, and they built a film around that, right? Kind of coming out of that. And anyway, this just
yeah.
It's visually immediately obvious, right? Like where
this is Vanilla Ice to a T.
Yeah, down to I couldn't find it. These are just stills I pulled really quickly, but like there's so many aspects of all of the aspects of the design of this film that,
like, even color wise,
exactly.
I'm like seeing the color theory of what's this movie? Soul. Totally forgot the name. Totally forgot the name of this movie.
Wow. It's kind of, it's like, I found it like both, it made me angry. It also made me embarrassed for them. Like, how lazy do you have to be, Pixar? Like, how, like, you have lost all. Disney has absorbed you into the collective.
Yeah, it's coming for us all. It's
Well,
Um,
yeah. Do we have any stats, Colin? I know that.
Yeah, it's got an 8.2 on IMDb. It has an 83 Metacritic, a 96% Rotten Tomatoes, and an 89% Audience Tomatoes.
What?
Sure, sure.
I
Um,
mean,
I
I'm not surprised. And Craig, you saw like my tweets about it. Like it's like the people loved it. People thought people really like I think it's because, and this is my theory, it might be wrong. It's not a conspiracy theory, just a
I was gonna
regular
say it
old
is Walt.
theory.
Don't say
Not
Walt.
a
Don't say
conspiracy.
Walt.
Not Walt. Walt's not involved in
We have
this
to
one.
distance ourselves again.
Walt's not involved with this one, I promise. That this is maybe the deepest and most like complex story we've seen come out of quarantine in a while. Not like maybe not like the entirety of quarantine, but like recently, maybe in the past few months, this has been it. Like if you think of like new wide releases, like big pictures. So I think people were just kind of like desperate for something and
Right.
just latched on to this because like especially a film about like enjoying all that life has to offer and like being out in the open and seeing what's great about being around other people and experiencing new things, something that we physically
right.
one cannot should not be doing right now. I feel like people were just like, oh, that is, and that's, this is not me saying the film is like the film did it, it's great. I'm just saying that like they had those, because they had those basic elements, people kind of put their own baggage onto that, and that's why I think it carried the film for that, for them to do that. But like I think if this came out in a regular year, in like a we had like constant films coming out like that, like I think The Green Knight was supposed to be coming out around the time this came out. Like um probably other films that were supposed to be coming out, but like it would have been in competition with better films, but it just wasn't. And I think Wonder Woman really just pushed it over the edge there, being like, look at this bad film and now watch Soul.
It's not as bad as Wonder
Yeah,
Woman.
it's a movie that's
Right?
Again,
marginally worse.
like it would have but yeah, no, like I think it's definitely the quarantine has to factor into like the stats there.
I think you're totally right, Lance. I had not really thought of it that way, but I think you're right. That I could start hearing those stats going. I was like, did you write them down correctly? Like, I was like, did you transpose some numbers?
Like 96, like 0.96 out of
Yeah,
like,
right.
like, that's right.
The
That's
decimal
what you
point
mean.
off.
The decimal point. That's, gotta understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like, I feel like again more black voices in film criticism as well, like in terms
Yes.
of like film critics, is definitely important
Yes.
because I feel like there are a lot of things that I found to be wrong with the movie that uh you know you know some like white film critic might not see that as being an issue, despite it having been, very, very clearly and repeatedly stated, time and time again. There's just
Yeah.
like some things that just like never seem to click, and so yeah, I think that a larger range because I think that for myself and for a lot of the other black people that I have seen, whose opinions I trust in terms of like
not
their
me.
ability to, yeah, people other than Lance and
Other
his
than
Walt
Lance.
Disney
Just
conspiracies.
want to make sure it's I
But like people
they're
who
good conspiracies.
who I know are able to like view film and media through like the lens of like constructive criticism. um they have a lot of mixed feelings about it too, like for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about here. And so it's not just like coming out of thin air. This is not just like something that's just like, I'm not trying to just like be like nitpicky about a movie. Like it's like there are a lot of like there are some big things in this movie that like the movie either doesn't address or handles poorly. And
Yes.
I would and like I don't fault anyone for enjoying the movie because at like a really surface level, it's a fairly enjoyable movie because it's like very clearly like manufactured to again like hit those key points of like what an emotionally evocative movie looks like. Like Pixar knows how to do that, and so it hits those notes and it hits those like. It's not to go like musical again, but it hits those notes like it hits those notes like right like it hits them on key, and so
Oh,
um
nice.
You did
and
that one on
so
purpose.
I
You did that one
understand
on
like
purpose.
You did that one
yeah
That one you did on
on
purpose.
purpose.
so yeah, I understand the like feeling like emotional about this movie of like having really strong emotional reactions to it and positive reactions to a lot of parts of this movie, and I also understand like seeing the flaws of it and seeing that there are not an insignificant amount of flaws. Like they're there and they're not
Well,
And
I
small.
yeah.
I kind of have 2 points to make on off of that because I agree with you. I think the first thing is like we have to like I think we kind of have to like film lovers, animation lovers come to the fact that like Pixar is a white establishment
Oh yeah.
Yes.
in like its entirety, which is like something that like it's cemented now looking at their entire roster of films and directors
And creators
and
and lead
creators.
animators and
Exactly. It's a white establishment and it's showing in their films. And like the second point is maybe this is like the start of the because Pixar, the thing that Pixar has always had is their story. They've been like they were the leaders in like making rich, new, just emotionally investing stories, and you're just like, oh, but like, are they now losing that? Because I think of the last few Pixar films I saw, um, Toy Story 4. What was the troll one?
Oh,
honestly,
Onward.
Oh,
I
Onward.
stopped watching them years ago, right?
Was that
It's
DreamWorks or was that Pixar?
I think
I have no idea.
I think Onward was Pixar.
Okay.
I can look.
But
Let me
yeah,
look. Let me look.
like you said, it's formulaic at this point. Like, and
And it's
they found a formula and they just kind of stuck to it. And it was novel when it first
it's
came out. It was something that it was something that wasn't really being done at the time. And so, like, yeah, they pushed forward the medium of animation in that way, like into a place where like it wasn't just kids that could enjoy an animated movie and feel like understood by watching it, and now it's kind of the point where yeah, like you said, they just kind of like copy and paste the formula but like with different like skins on it.
Yep.
mm-hmm.
Yep.
In like a post Steven Universe, um, Kipo Shira world, you can't really do that anymore. Like it's they're becoming the antiquated formula for animation,
Yeah.
and I feel like but they're like they're also an establishment. They can't. They're going to be well. They are Disney. It's like the
Yeah,
whole
they are
Disney.
Disney.
They are Disney,
Yeah.
but it's sad because like Pixar always felt like that part of Disney that always was just a little bit better. But I feel like now it's like it's not. It's
And
really
Yeah.
not.
and that again, this coming out at this unique moment in time, right? That
Right.
this was planned. I mean, think about their production schedules, like 5, 6 years ago, right? That even the content of it feels so completely out of touch in some
Out
ways
of
with
touch. Yeah.
out of touch, right? And
hmm
yeah.
It just it's
And yeah.
no. I feel like the next few years of their films are really gonna just like be what's gonna their future. Like if they're gonna have a future.
I mean, they're gonna have a
Nine.
future. They're Disney at this
But I
point.
mean,
yeah.
are they gonna have like? Are they gonna have sustainable future is maybe the right word. Like, are they going to still be the leaders in
Well,
animation?
I think there's kind of two questions here. One is like, are they going to continue to make money? Yes,
Yes,
right.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
then, right,
yeah.
and then, but are they going to continue to be interesting creatively?
Yeah, and
Probably no.
innovative. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that part, yeah,
innovative,
that's
not
the part
necessarily,
where,
yeah.
I don't see that happening because, yeah, once you kind of get absorbed into, the belly of the beast, you just kind of become a part of that machine. And so that's pretty much what's happened is, and that's what happens. We see it time and time again with, even things like, Amazon and like all these things where, um, yeah, it seemed like a really good idea at the time to be like, oh yeah, like this is great. Like they'll have like bigger budgets and this and that, but that also comes with like more restrictions and guidelines from higher up to fall under standards and policies. All of those things that come with the strings that are attached to that money.
And what Black Panther proved is you can have this can be financially profitable, right? That kind of that mindset of like, well, you can only do it in a niche way, or that it won't make money. That's just wrong, right? And so
Yeah.
the idea that you can
Well,
have meaningful political discussion in pop culture, it's just
well, it's the Black Panther, Coco, like Moana. I remember that one being like very well done.
I've seen that one.
It's like they can do it, they just don't want to do it. And like, I also will say, hey Disney, if you want to give me a Star Wars series, which you're doing, I guess, I will rescind
Yes, please.
everything I just said. I will rescind it all, Disney. I need
Any
I love
statements
it.
you've made about Walt Disney's head
Be-
still being around and making decisions?
No, just
We
erase.
made
I will ask no questions. I will,
made you say that. We made you say that.
I will come for all of you. I will make my own podcast. Just all of this will be rescinded. It's fine. I need the money. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do we have any recommendations? Things that
I do. Can I go first?
want
Can I go
people to
first, Greg?
enjoy
Please. Can I go
Please
first?
start,
Can I go
please.
first? Okay, number one, the Hubley Studio Collection is now available on through Criterion. Go watch that instead of this movie. I'm sorry, just watch those jazz and animation films starring people of color in the 50s and 60s. Yay. Okay, so that's one. If you like movies about what happens after death, Defending Your Life from the 80s with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep is really funny. Like, it holds up. Afterlife is I think the Japanese title is Wonderful Life, 1998 by Corey Ada. That is a phenomenally dark and funny kind of take on what happens after they're all in this like way station. It's really smart. The Good Place obviously is a show that's just wrapped up. If you like crawling between worlds, they keep having those portals and you crawl in between them. Back when it's safe to go to places, I would highly recommend in Santa Fe, and there's soon to be one here in Denver, the Meow Wolf Artist Collective, where you can crawl through things. Yeah, that would be something if that's something you enjoy when we get to all touch each other again. I would also recommend, instead of watching this movie, that maybe watch Zootopia, because that has a very different type of message in it, right? This is this Pixar like self-actualize, like you change, the world doesn't change message. Whereas in Zootopia, it's about police brutality in some ways, right? And it's about systemic problems and kind of the difference between you yourself have to change versus nope, society has to change. And so I would, in the Talking Animals movies for kids that actually does this more politically thoughtfully, I would recommend Zootopia.
And Zootopia does also do a great job of like, sorry, just to add on,
Go.
like
Yeah.
showing like how like you also are, even though you might be a victim of it, you also are an active part of society, which means that you have a lot of the faults society also does have, which surprised me as a person who watched Zootopia and was very like, oh, this is gonna be is that furry tiger movie? And then watching it, I was like, it is, but like it's also more.
Yes.
There is more to it.
There is more to it. Yeah, I mean, I can keep going. If you want to look at contemporary Black painting, Mark Bradford is very kind of painting today that will, and Pixar will end up stealing from 50 years from now as they did from Hubblies.
Obviously.
Tongues
It's already
Untied.
in the books. Like
It's
they
already
already have it
there.
on.
They
I
already
feel
have
like
it
I
on the
feel like
schedule.
50 year life, they're like, there it is. We're stealing that then. Okay, good.
I would say Tongues Untied is I've mentioned this one before by Marlon Riggs. It's kind of a poetic documentary. Oh, which is really phenomenal. Black and queer in the late 80s. Yeah, really. Okay, there are lots of other options, I guess is what I'm saying, rather than watching this movie.
Right on. Thank you, Tara.
Yes, thank you for letting me go first.
Do you have any recommendations, Colin?
Yeah, I actually just recently very much enjoyed watching Death to 2021 on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's very cathartic. Like I belly laughed like a bunch of times
Yep.
watching this because it's dark and it's like hilarious and it's like everything we really need um, to.
Yeah.
That didn't sound correct.
Oh, oh, Wes.
Yes. Oh my god. How do I follow? How do you follow
Lance,
that?
do you have any
All right, Craig, no.
recommendations?
Not after I said how do I follow that.
Ah!
Oh no. No.
It's fine.
What if
All right.
here's another? What if I like posted another picture, just another baby, not mine, just another baby.
Just a baby.
Just a random baby.
So I have
All right.
three. I have three things, if I can. First, another animated movie that I think is like a better version of this is Spirited Away. If you haven't seen it, how would you seen it? Like has someone shut your eyes closed? Because I feel like I see it every other day, just like pop up somewhere. No, Spirited Away. Like I feel it's a great movie about someone journeying to the spirit world and having to like deal with their own like issues through this, but like in a much better way than this movie does. Second, if you haven't read it, if you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's a Avatar Kyoshi book series that is fantastic. There's 2 books in it. They're great. They really like do a great job of bringing you back to that world and like a new and like it takes place, I think. So it's 2 Avatar cycles before Aang's. So it's very like it's still in that world. They do a great job of like bringing in characters you kind of know in ways that you don't really think about. It's very like it does a good job of incorporating the mythology too and kind of building off of it. My favorite thing is like I think she has a better origin story in these than Aang does actually, which is a big sell, but I stand by it. And then my last one is a book I am in the middle of right now. It's called The House in Cerulean Sea. It feels like it's like a queer fantasy novel about this man who has to take care of these children who have these magical powers who live in an orphanage, and it feels like a series of unfortunate events, but like adult. It's an adult fiction novel, so check that one out if you guys want to read a good book. But that's all my recs.
Right on. I
Craig?
will recommend. Let's see. So there's this company called Limited Run Games, and what they do is they make physical copies of games to kind of like preserve them as like physical things in the world, so they're not just like digital. And so their next one that they're doing that they're rolling out is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game, which I played back on like PlayStation. I thought Lance would like that. And and I really like this, like to kind of give a spiel, which again, this is like not an ad, but it's really cool, like the way that they're running this, because especially after we've seen what's been happening with, like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series One rollouts. They're actually doing like a 6-week pre-order, and so like they're doing that starting on January 15th. which I will definitely be engaging in because I just got a Switch, and so I really want to get this game on Switch. And so like it's like all like they're taking or pre-orders over 6 weeks, so it's like no like forced like shortage of supply. They're actually like taking the time to be able to produce all of the orders that they're going to be making, like they're getting. So I'm like, this is how you know do this if you're going to do it,
Right.
Sony, Microsoft, like
So is
this
it
whole thing of
is it
like
is it physical copies like made for new consoles? Physical copies of
yes.
old games for new
Yeah, so
consoles?
yeah,
Oh.
they're doing a PS4 and a Nintendo Switch like physical copies of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So like they work with like the publishing companies
Hmm.
to or the developers to like be able to do it like it's all like above board and all that good stuff. So like they like have the rights to make this physical copy of the game. And so like this is like the first time like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is going to be like available as like a physical copy, which is really dope. So they have like like a regular edition, collector's edition. They have like big boxes, like huge like collector's editions with like pins and all this really cool stuff. So yeah, I would say check out them. They're
So
yeah
what's stopping like the game companies from like doing it this way, or like them doing it through the game companies? You know what I mean?
For a lot of them, it's because like a lot of the games that they do this for are indie games. So like a
Hmm.
lot of the indie game companies like they don't have like the resources to be able to like produce
That's
like
true.
physical copies of games. And so like most of the time you're just getting it on Steam because that's just like an easy way to do it. But yeah, every once in a while like they'll do this for either a game that's like really big, that's really popular, or like kind of like a cult classic, which is like the case for the Scott Pilgrim game. And so, yeah, I think it's a really, really dope way of like preserving this thing because, yeah, I think I had like Scott Pilgrim on my PS3 downloaded and I don't have my PS3 anymore. So, like, I don't have that game anymore, but like, it's pretty cool to be able to do that. So,
Nice.
um, yeah, that's let's see some animated stuff. I think you mentioned Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts. That is a wonderful show that like has a lot of like black characters like at the forefront in a way that is like really well done. It's got like a character who's gay who actually just says, "Hey, I'm gay," and it's like, oh, that's like the first time I think I've ever seen that in in an animated show. Like I've seen like characters who like they'll like show them on screen or like show them in like like
Hmm.
scenes with like their like same sex partner. But like that's the first time I think I've ever actually just heard a character like say I am gay.
Yeah. Like
And so like that was really cool. Like and so I would recommend Keep on the Age of the Wonder Beast. Um I know that yeah, I wish I should just like have like Hermes Twitter up because they're always just like kind of like introducing me to the most like amazing animated shows because that's their jam. So yeah, I think that animation overall like has such great potential, and I think that like as particularly here in America, I would love for us to recognize it more as something that's like beyond just for being kids because that would I feel like alleviate a lot of the problems that we see in a movie like Soul where I think it kind of wants to go deeper in a lot of these areas, but it doesn't feel like it can because it's like trying to like have these like too broad moments in order to like kind of like be more kidsy as opposed to just saying like we can make something that's mature and not necessarily inappropriate for children but still like complex enough to where like maybe like older kids would be able to maybe it's a movie for older kids and we can like you can still have kids movies and you
Yeah,
can make
and
animated things for adults too.
And like the Japanese model is a great one, right?
Exactly.
You have stuff from preschool to being elderly, and works that speak to all those age groups. And yeah, I Craig, make that happen. Can you make that our
Totally, I'm on it.
Awesome.
But like, and also like, they don't have to be like the Rick and Morty, the Archer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be
just like crass. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most of those shows don't need to be animated, right? They just don't. The one thing I always say to everyone is, I'm like, in animation, you don't have to obey gravity, right? Like, think of all the cool things you get to do in animation that you don't get to do in the real world or other worlds. Use it that way. That's always my. And honestly, look, another talking animal movie. Great.
And it's the reason that I think a lot of people flock to Cartoon Network, like their kids shows, but because they kind of do a great job of saying, oh, we don't have to follow this model. We also don't have to be like, we are just for kids, but like, kids are smarter than they seem. Kids are not idiots. Like, they respect their kids that they're like showing stuff to. It's like give that to us. We deserve that too. Like, stupid kids, we don't need them.
Yeah, we don't need kids.
We don't need kids.
The person who's a new dad on this call.
Yeah, Colin like posts his name again. We're all like, oh, okay, I guess one can stay. I guess one kid can stay.
Wes is gonna come to you one day and be like, Dad, I found this old podcast episode.
Kids were trash.
Kids were trash. And I'm looking up the timeline. I was born. I was there.
I was 5 months old when this happened. What was going on?
You're gonna be like, I have some things to tell you.
Well, all right. Thank you all again. Thank you, Lance, for bringing us this.
Thank you, Lance.
Very complex.
I just want to say I did not get a town car this time again, and I'm just saying I was promised to be driven through.
Next time we'll fly you out to Zoom first class.
There we go.
Yeah,
nice.
we'll get you up first class on the Zoom call.
I love the idea that we fly you back to Denver to Zoom with us. Right?
No. That's
we'll
it.
Put you up in a nice hotel room with a good Wi-Fi signal so you can Zoom.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
I love you guys. I love this podcast.
Love you, Lance.
To all of our friends and listeners, you can find us online. We are on Twitter and Instagram at IWYTWT. We are on, Facebook, facebook.com/groups/IWITWT. We have not been banned from any of those platforms.
Oh, wow.
That's something I can say that the president fucking can't. So
we are not considered too dangerous to continue the podcast.
Let's see. Our website is iwitwt.com. And you can find us now on Twitch, streaming generally on Sundays. We're going to probably try and do it like during brunchish hours. But Lance, has, I guess, like things to do and like places to be and
a job.
Like a job.
Like
a job. Like a work.
A life to live. So we're running a little later today. But yeah, we will be posting our times when we go live on our Twitter page mostly, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you again. You can find me individually online. I am at Catharticus. Colin, where are you at?
I am at Colin Munch.
Lance, you got something going on? Where are you?
I truly forgot my Twitter username right now, so find me on Craig's.
Oh,
You'll pop up on there somewhere. You'll see it.
Right on. Well, thank you all once again for listening, and goodbye.